Alrighty, I'm finally getting started with this Notion tour that I've been wanting to do for a little while. I haven't made a video in, it's been really, really long, like months. But I wanted to come back just to do a Notion tour, which I feel like is pretty much what I've been building on this whole entire year. And this is kind of like what's been helping me get back on track with life because a lot's happened in the past year, and finding Notion as a tool has been really awesome. So let's just get into this. All right, so for this tour, I'm just gonna give you guys like a walkthrough through my Notion and how I've been using it. It's been pretty much something that I've been iterating on over the past year, and I use it for literally everything. All right, so I'm gonna start with my weekly agenda since this is pretty much how I organize my week. And I built this template through a YouTube video that I found online and literally just like walking through the steps. I'm gonna link that in the description below. But following that template was a lifesaver, and iterating on it and building on it for like my own purposes has been super helpful. So for this weekly agenda, I have the week listed, like, so it's like numbered here. So week 46, the date, and I use one of my Google calendars for this. So there's like stuff I have going on here. It's connected to one of my Google accounts. And then here I have it organized by, the day of the week. I like to start my days off on Mondays. And so, yeah, so I also like have it separated out from like work and personal. That's just something I like to do because I feel like I'd rather just have everything in one area. Like I don't want to have like a weekly tracker for personal and work separately, although that might work for some people. For me, I like to have it all together, and to help create like differentiation, I use like a toggle list. So in Notion, you can create like a toggle for your, for any lists. And so I use this for my tasks specifically. And you can see that I actually have it like divvied up into high priority and low priority tasks. And then inside each of these, there will be a to-do list inside for each of them. So for my job, I'll have like a to-do list of things that I need to do here. So these are my high priority tasks, and then I have like lower priority tasks as well. And pretty much my personal task pretty much follow that same format. And so I have this set up for pretty much every day of the week. You can see Thursday and Friday, no work, because it's, as I'm recording this, it's still a weekend of Thanksgiving. And so technically this is like my day-to-day Sunday. So this is pretty much how I organize my work weeks. And again, this was like something I built off of like a previous template. And then at the bottom here, I have a long-term. So I like to keep a long-term section here because a lot of times I'll have tasks that aren't immediate, that don't need to be immediately addressed within like that day or even within that week, but something I need to keep in mind for a longer term. And I have that for both work and like my personal life. So I have it divvied up into high priority and lower priority tasks for both of those things as well. So just to keep me more organized, and so I just don't forget those longer term things. Then at the bottom here in that template I got, there was something called a weekly reflection. And I think this might have been from like a separate template from the one from the YouTube video I'm talking about, but I pulled this weekly reflection and added it to this because I just thought it would be good to reflect on the week. And I've actually been doing a pretty good job of reflecting, adding in a couple words about how I'm feeling. And I do enjoy going back to looking back on like how I was thinking that week. I think that this is good because I've been trying to build up the habit to journal more regularly, which I really haven't been, but at least with starting out a weekly reflection, that kind of gives me a starting point of like reflecting and like, journaling at least like a little bit. So it's like my low effort way of entering into like journaling for myself. I have not done it today because it's Sunday and I usually do it on like Sunday nights or like Monday mornings, after the week has ended. Oh, and then here, the archive here, this is just a collection of all of the old weeks that I previously had calendars for and my task list for. I like to just put an archive of everything in here and just so I can like look back on it and reflect, maybe see what task I did. I don't really go in here super often. I think the only thing I've ever looked at this for was to just see like my weekly reflection to see what I was thinking about that week. I always think it's kind of interesting. Awesome. Now I'm gonna go into my career section. And so this one I'm really proud of. This career section is like a collection of everything that I was thinking about in 2020. So in the year 2020, literally all I was focusing on was my career and what I was just trying to do. And I feel like I had so many thoughts going through my head that I didn't know, like I was writing it down like on pieces of like paper and like my notebook. My thoughts were just so scattered all over the place. My sister recommended me actually to write down like everything that I'm thinking about in like one concrete place. And then I discovered Notion as like a tool. And so this, like all of those thoughts like kind of led me to want to create like this Notion. And so this is like the collection of everything I've just wanted to track for myself and what I'm just thinking about. And so here I have like concepts to understand, just general things that I want to learn for myself in my career. As I stated in the previous video, I am a Geospatial Technical Program Manager. I work with maps on the Uber app, and that involves a lot of coding and data analysis. And so a lot of the things that I have here are things that are related to it. So I have like a general to-do and here that I have not done. So for example, creating and updating my website. And let's see, I have general GIS things that I want to learn. And that's just a toggle list of just concepts for myself that I want to learn to be a better geospatial professional, skills that I'm looking into. And these are just things I just kind of accumulated over the course of time, just kind of like find and I'll just plop them in there. Full stack development, algorithms, data structures, data science. These are all like, again, these are all pretty much to-do lists of things that I've been thinking about learning in each of these things, in each of these pages, that I just want to keep track of for myself. And then this section here is just like what type of, career do I want in CS and programming, especially as it relates to being like a mapping professional like I am. So these are just like a bullet point list of all of those things. And here is a skill tracker that I created. So I keep a skill tracker. I started to keep a skill tracker actually to write down everything that I've been learning related to all these different skills. Just because like I think it's always good to just kind of take an assessment of everything like you're learning. And also I think it's good to have a skill tracker so that when like you're updating your resume, you can like have this list to, refer to. So I have like a GIS one here of everything that I've like learned over the course of my career so far. And the same thing goes for development, statistics, databases, all of that fun stuff. Here in the programming session, it's just tips I have for myself related to these like programming languages. And another archive of things that I probably don't need. And that's my career section. So I think it was more of like a brain dump of everything I'm thinking about in regards to my career. Then I have my content creation section, which you can see the banner is piggies because I like piggies. Yes. So content creation, I have a content calendar here, which is full of things that I'm just thinking about posting. It's a literal calendar. And so this is my calendar for everything that I'm thinking about posting in the near future and how I have it organized. So you can see in this table that I have all of like my videos and podcasts that I'm thinking about recording or that I have intentions to record. And this is like the title, and I have some details in this column. My guest, if it needs a guest, my recording date, release date, the status, and the platform, whether it's like a YouTube video or a podcast. I haven't been doing a great job keeping up with this, to be totally honest. It's been kind of hard, to get myself back into the groove of content creation, so I had a lot going on this past year. But now that I'm getting back into the groove, I do foresee this to be easier to maintain and like stick to as a schedule because life is real. So underneath like status for a given item that I'm planning to record, I have like these different status options. I have scheduled, planning, posted, recorded, and then like sent to editor if it's something that needs to be sent to my editor. And so that's pretty self-explanatory. That just kind of helped me to keep track of what I'm actually working on and what I'm doing. And then I have the platform, which is pretty much just, podcasts, YouTube and Instagram. This way I can filter it out when necessary. So if let's say I just want to filter out where the platform is not posted, where I have not posted it, and it is for YouTube. Now I can just take a look at everything I'm looking at for specifically YouTube. And you can see there's a lot of things that are scheduled and planned. Okay, going back to the content creation, I keep like a table of ideas that I'm also thinking about for content creation as well. That's just whenever it strikes me, like someone's like, oh, this is a good idea for like a podcast, or you should think about posting this online, gets added to this list here. Not a very particularly interesting list, so I'm not going to go inside it, neither for these editor responsibilities or virtual assistant responsibilities, because they're both just lists of things that I would like for my editor and virtual assistant to be doing. And I don't currently have a virtual assistant, but in the future, when I find it to be a little more necessary, at least I'll have a list that I can reference. And then I just have like something a little bit about promoting myself and like how I'd like to do that. Again, another list inside there. Yeah. And then just those little notes about the structure of my podcast and the tools that I'm using. But this is pretty much my content creation section. A lot of it's still a work in progress as I'm still pretty new to it, but I'm happy with how I built it out so far. This section is my long-term planning section. And here is just I just keep a running list of everything that I'm thinking about accomplishing over the next year. Not everything is totally filled out. Some are more filled out than others. For example, I have like my yearly goals are pretty well filled out, and I actually prefer to separate out into quarters like this: winter, spring, summer, and fall, because I like to divide my year into quarters and to give myself more of like a deadline for things to achieve things. And it kind of helps me to break up my larger goals into smaller ones. And so my winter goals, I had some of these goals were to lose some weight, record some videos, focus on my podcast and like YouTube and some doctor stuff. And the same kind of goes for spring, summer, and currently in fall. I just have some bigger picture goals that I'm working at, and just like an archive of these goals, like once this year is over, I'll just archive all of these goals into my archive. My bucket list, as you can expect, is a to-do list of everything I want to accomplish. And this is before I turn 30 next year. Woo-hoo. So exciting. I've actually accomplished a lot on that list so far. Business, finances, moving, therapy. Similarly, they're all kind of like lists of things that I want to, track for myself. So I won't really go into the business and finance or moving things because they're either it's a little more personal or I don't have like a fully fleshed out ideas at the moment. Therapy, I go into that. Therapy, the idea here is to track all of my notes that I take in therapy, because during therapy, like I take notes on certain action items, like from my therapist for things I need to do. And then my therapist asked me to fill out an automatic thought record. And that is a table that pretty much tracks all of my anxious thoughts and the time and how I'm feeling. And so I'm keeping track of that currently in there for myself and, for therapy. Then I have my goals for the next 6 months. Travel plans. I really love how I set up my travel section a lot. It's funny, because to be honest, I feel like I don't update my travel database here, like this database here, until after my trip is over. Like I never use it while I'm planning. It's kind of horrible. But here are all my completed trips for the year. So you can see all of these. And then a Ghana trip that I'm tentatively planning, and then ideas for other trips that I want to take in the near future. And I just keep track of it I have these categories: tentative, planning, booked, and completed. So tentative, I'm not really super sure about it. Planning, if I'm sure and it's already planning. Booked, and then completed. So I would actually need to categorize this as tentative right now, actually. I need a couple days to figure out what I'm doing with that. And the weekly agenda, we kind of just went over, so I'm not going to go over that again. And then I have work. Actually, before I even get into work, let's just get into workouts. Okay, for my workouts, I use a gallery. I use like the gallery database, I think it's a database like feature. And so this just enables you to paste in images from the internet. And now you kind of have like a whole gallery of whatever it is that you're looking at. So I thought that'd be perfect for workouts specifically, because I like to reference it when I'm at the gym. And if I don't know what I'm going to be doing at the gym, I find that having this is like a great substitute. And especially if I'm bringing one of my sisters to the gym and I need to teach them a workout, or we can't we need to do a workout together and I need to guide them through it. I think that having these images has been super helpful in helping me curate a workout for the both of us. And so I really love having these things to reference if I'm just in the gym and I want to get in something quick and I don't have anything else to reference. So I actually use this, I would say, pretty often. Lately, not as often, because I more rely on just the fitness classes I take and YouTube videos, but this still comes in pretty handy. All right, the last thing I'm gonna get through is work. And if you take a look through all my favorites here, most of them, with the exception of the weekly agenda and therapy and the content schedule, these other ones are all embedded pages inside work. And this is a pretty long, this is probably the most intense part of how I use Notion and the most frequent way I use it, because the work I do is so complicated. It requires so much documentation and tracking. So clicking on my project tracker, you can see like this is like a Kanban board, and almost like, I think you can kind of do this in Jira in a way, or Trello actually. But through Notion, you can actually make a customized Kanban board, and I use this to track my projects at work, at Uber. And so I have the categories of to do, in progress, in review, blocked, and completed. I don't like to see my completed tasks. I don't think there's a point in seeing completed tasks, so I keep them hidden. I keep them all hidden. And I think these categories are pretty self-explanatory, with the only exception of being blocked. Blocked is just the project is stalled for now, or for whatever reason that's not of my own doing. I do not need to think about this project at the moment. And then everything else is pretty self-explanatory. So in Project Tracker, you'll see I have these links: OKRs, project nodes, Geodata Tracker, Jira. These, I believe these all, okay, yes, with the exception of my project notes, these all link to internal documentation that I'm not really going to get into. I don't think is really necessary, but I like to keep them in my project tracker because they're project tracking systems in themselves that I need for different reasons. So keeping them all kind of together in one place kind of helps keep it all together. So if I add a project to my personal tracker, I can add it to the Jira, I can add it to the tracker, and I can also just keep conscious of like our OKRs and projects like annually. My project notes, it just connects to a different page that I've made in my notes section, where I just keep a running list of all of my notes tied to my projects. Going back again to like my work, clicking on notes, I have my notes divided up into these 5 different pages right here: documentation, first days, Git, meetings, and projects. I'm not quite sure why I put Git in its own little section, but I did. Documentation, it's what it sounds like. The documentation, I have this highlighted link that goes more deeply into all of documentation we have into one of our internal services called Geofences that I'm responsible for. And then I have other slightly more general links to internal documentation for other things related to what I need to work. Down here, right here, all of that, those are links to pages of notes that I've taken for myself, and just notes that I've taken and have just kind of like categorized in a way that makes sense to me and that's useful to me, so that I need to reference for myself if I'm like learning something new or need to answer or ask a question. I think the most important part that I go into the most often in my whole of Notion outside of my weekly agenda is Geofences. And this is my documentation, like everything that I've learned over the course of starting at Uber. So I have like an overview here, and I have like this map image up here, and it's kind of hard to tell, but it's a guinea pig that I digitized in the middle of nowhere. And this is just like an explanation of like the service and some of the architecture. And a lot of this is like internal documentation that I just linked in here, and it'll take me out to wherever it's stored, probably in Google Docs, for example. And I have all of my document, and this, oh yeah, again, I think this is just more notes that I took and more documentation that I just kind of like organized here for myself. And that's pretty much it. If you guys like content like this and like videos like this, where I kind of show how I organize and track things, feel free to let me know. I'm curious about how other people do it. Like, have you used Notion? Do you use something else? Do you use like Trello? Like, is there another tracking software system that you use? Like, let me know. And please give a like, comment, and subscribe to the video, because it helps me, and you guys know how this algorithm works. And that's all I got for you. Thanks.